Hi, this is Carrie, and in this video I'm going to talk about how to use third-party content in iScrapbook scrapbooking software. There are several different ways you can use your third-party content that you've purchased outside of iScrapbook in iScrapbook software, and it's just a matter of finding the way that works right for you. Now, the first way you can do it is to keep your third-party content in a content manager like iPhoto or ACDC or something like that. I have my third-party content in an iPhoto library. I use iPhoto Library Manager to use multiple libraries, and so I have a library just for my digital scrapbooking content, you can see here, and I organize mine into events. Each kit I pull in as an event, and then I can just double click on my kit, and so it's a little more organized. You can, in iPhoto, you can keyword your content, so you can label them as papers and by color and whatnot. And if you have your content in iPhoto, you can just drag it from iPhoto into your iScrapbook project, and it will place it in on your iScrapbook page. And then you can size it and work with it just like any other element. Now, that's doing it from iPhoto. So that iPhoto is a way to organize your content, and we've discussed that at How to Scrap on Mac quite a bit, and there's several other places that discuss it as well. Another way to do it would be to keep your content just in your regular Mac Finder and organized in folders, and you can drag it and drop it from a folder into your iScrapbook project as well, just like you can drag and drop photos from a Finder folder or from the Finder or wherever on your Mac into iScrapbook. The third way that I want to talk a little bit more about is the content manager in iScrapbook itself. Now, it does have some limitations, but there are also some nice reasons to keep your content in iScrapbook itself. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So in iScrapbook, you'll notice over here on the right, there are 3 tabs. It says Graphics, Text, and Favorites. Now, the Graphics tab is where we see our options for pulling shapes into iScrapbook pages. You see your iScrap kits, which is content you've purchased from the iScrapbook store. And you see your Photos tab, which is your tab that links to your iPhoto library. Now, if I click on my iPhotos tab right now, I'm going to see my digital content library from iPhoto, because that is the most recent iPhoto library I had open. And so if I have photos selected, I see all of my content that's in iPhoto. If I click on this one, that is the most recent album or the most recent event I had open. Or I can do my last import, or I can do flagged content. If I had libraries defined in iPhoto, like if I defined each one of my kits as an album in my iPhoto library, I would see a list of albums here, and I could select what album I wanted to get my content from. And then I can just pull it in there from here to into my iPhoto or into my iScrapbook page. The other way to do it within iScrapbook, so using the Photos tab in it, which is linked to an iPhoto library of digital content, is one way to do it as well. The downside of doing it this way is that if you use multiple iPhoto libraries, for example, I have one for my digital content, one for my photo content, and then some others for different content, I have to go into iPhoto Library Manager and switch between those libraries every time I want to add a photo. I'm going to have to go into iPhoto Library Manager and open my Photos library and add my photo, and then when I want to add an element from a third-party kit, I'm going to have to go back into iPhoto Library Manager and switch to my digital content library so I can find my content, and that gets to be kind of cumbersome depending on how much content you have and where you keep it. So the other way that you can organize content in iScrapbook is to use this Favorites tab over on the right. And if you click on the Favorites tab, you'll see 2 panes. You see a pane at the top called Collections, and you see a pane at the bottom that has graphics in it. Now, in the collection, up here in the collections pane, below it, you have a plus and minus sign. You use the plus sign to create a new collection, use a minus sign to delete a collection. And if you click the plus sign, it will say, what do you want to name this collection? And I'm just going to call it new collection and say OK. Now down here in my list, they're listed alphabetically, the collections are, so I have to scroll down to find my new collection. New collection. If I click on new collection, there's nothing in it. So what I can do to put my third-party content in a collection is I can go over here to either iPhoto or my Finder, wherever my third-party content is stored, and select the content I want to put in this collection. I'm going to just select all of these, and I can drag it into this collection. And then iScrapbook will drag that content into this collection. Now what it does is it takes those, it makes copies of the JPEGs or PNGs or whatever your graphics files are, and it copies them into a special iPhoto library of sorts on your drive that is kind of a package, or kind of like iPhoto where it stores it in a packaged set of folders for you to use within your iPhoto software. So if you store your digital content on your hard drive and then you also pull it into the iScrapbook organizer area, you're going to have 2 copies of it on your hard drive. Now for me this isn't a problem because I store my digital content collection on an external hard drive, and so when I pull it into iScrapbook software, it copies it onto my local hard drive, and that's okay because my local hard drive is huge. I have like a terabyte hard drive, so I have, which I'm only using 1/4 of. So for me to store a copy of my digital content on my local hard drive isn't a big deal. For some people it may be. So pulling it into iScrapbook has that drawback. It takes space on your local hard drive. The other drawback is that you don't have it keyworded at all. If I right click on this, it doesn't do anything. There's no way to keyword my content. If I double click it, it just adds it to my page. So if you want to be able to sort it by type of embellishment or color or kit or whatever, you can't really do that in here and search for it by keyword. You have to know what collection it is already in. And this is kind of where it comes in handy to have it both in iPhoto and in here, because you could look for it in iPhoto and then drag it in here, but that gets to be cumbersome too. So there are pluses and minuses to each. I'm going to just delete this content because I already have it in here. I don't need duplicate content. So that is how you can organize your kits within iScrapbook software. You just make a collection, and you could do it, you wouldn't have to, I have called my collections by their kit name when I purchase them, and then drag all of the stuff from that kit into that collection. You could make a collection called paper and put all your paper in that collection. You could make a collection called ribbons and put all your ribbons in that collection. Or you could make a collection by color. You could make a collection called red and store all your red stuff in there. You don't have to do it necessarily by kit that you've purchased, but that's the way I did it. So that is how you can organize and work with third-party content in iScrapbook. You can either store it in an iPhoto library and just pull it in from iPhoto into iScrapbook. You can store it in iScrapbook in their favorites tab and organize it by collections. You can store it in your Finder in folders, using no software to organize it. Just store it in Finder and pull it from Finder into iScrapbook when you're using it. You could use it in another third-party program like ACDC to organize it as well. So hopefully that helps with how you can organize your third-party and use your third-party content in iScrapbook.